Right, so when it comes to the Middle East, aside from Israel itself, the most pro-Western nation after that can only be Jordan. And by and large, they have reinforced that image throughout the atrocities Israel have been committing in Gaza and Lebanon and beyond, along with the destabilisation of Syria and the disruption of other Middle Eastern entities, making their feelings very much felt about all of it, very much taking a side against Israel and its actions. Jordan, possibly more than any other nation in the Middle East, has taken a neutral stance. I've described them as Switzerland during this conflict before, though that hasn't been strictly true. Jordan having allowed Israeli allies to use their airspace to repel Iran's attacks, for example, during their Operation True Promise 1, so have actually been more Israel-centric, whilst also keeping out of matters by and large. But although things have now soured to the point Jordan is verging on war with Israel itself, it's something that has been coming down the line for a while, and has accelerated in recent months, due in no small part to events outside of Jordan's control coming to pass. More and more, this is a nation being backed into a corner by Israel, by its supposed allies in the US, and they may be about to be pushed too far. Right, so Jordan, a nation that has had peace agreements in place with Israel since 1994, and given the only thing separating them from Israel is the River Jordan itself, pretty much, being an immediate neighbour to a state led by such an unhinged and genocidal government as Israel is, might well be a good reason to keep the peace between them, so to speak, and as such have largely kept out of taking any sides despite the genocide happening in Gaza, something Jordan has come in for a lot of criticism for. But they are being backed into a corner now, where things may be about to explode anyway. There are actually quite good reasons for Jordan to not want to take an active role here. For one, it is the third driest nation on Earth, and despite its size, as a result of that, the vast majority of Jordan's population of 12 million people therefore live alongside the River Jordan, live alongside the Israel border in which also happens to comprise the Dead Sea, which the River Jordan drains into, and further south the terrain becomes far more mountainous between the two countries. A 400-kilometre long border all told as it is, 10 times the length of Gaza, just 3 crossings actually exist between the two nations. The border in between those crossings impassable to the point of being impossible to police, is the claim Jordan has actually made in the past. Being water poor has meant 40% of Jordan's water, though, comes from the Yarmouk River basin in southern Syria, territory Israel has now seized control of, putting Jordan's water supply at risk somewhat, whilst also reinforcing their justification for not taking people from Palestine, not only because it is ethnic cleansing and they wish to have no part of that, but because their limited water supply already struggles. So to support additional population, a rapid increase in it, would add to that struggle significantly. So Israel controls a lot of the land their water comes from. Most of Jordan's population live close to the Israel border. It's little wonder Jordan has sought to keep the peace, therefore, because war between the two nations would put a lot of Jordanian civilians in immediate danger. So war is the last thing they want. Nonetheless, relations have gone south over the past year or so. Israel caused great insult to Jordan just last year when they made the claim to be surrounded by enemies when they share their largest land border with Jordan. This resulted in Jordan's Foreign Minister Ayman Safadi taking to the podium at the UN Security Council, which was hosting delegations from the 57-member group of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, the OIC, where Safadi let rip at Netanyahu, following one of his woe is me, I'm a victim turns at the UN, where Safadi laid down an unequivocal and unanimous offer, speaking on behalf of the whole of the OIC as he was, on the table for Israel to take. He said all of them are willing to guarantee with immediate effect the security of Israel in the context of Israel ending its illegal occupation of Palestine, as per the advisory decision that had been handed down by the International Court of Justice, and allow for the formation of a Palestinian state. Well, of course, that didn't happen, did it? Since then, Jordan have sent extra battalions to their border region, to those crossings, along with a message to Israel that any attempt to force Palestinians across their border they would view as a violation of their 1994 peace treaty, and now they're saying they would call it a declaration of war. Israel's response to that action was to create an eastern division to guard the border with Jordan on their side of the border. Creating further upset in Jordan has been Donald Trump, of course. It is his stupid idea to displace the whole of the Gazan population, after all. But upon regaining the presidency, Trump summarily cut all foreign aid to all countries, except for Israel and Egypt. Therefore, he cut off Jordan. Now, Trump, flip-flopping over what he said at the moment, has said he wants Egypt and Jordan to take the people of Gaza. Still funding one and not the other, though. So that's not a great look. That's great diplomacy there, isn't there? But Jordanians fear Trump will hold restoration of funding over their heads in exchange for taking people from Gaza, which they have a lack of capacity for, the issue of water supply being a key one, as I've already mentioned. Israel could also hold the water they control in southern Syria to ransom in effect too, which would certainly be a provocation. Alternatively, Jordan's unpoliceable border could be exploited by Israel as well. There are, as I've said, only 3 crossing points between Israel and Jordan. 2 of them are on the River Jordan itself, the Jordan River crossing, imaginatively named, in the north, the Allenby Bridge just north of the Dead Sea, and the Yitzhak Rabin crossing in the far south at the head of the Gulf of Aqaba, which leads into the Red Sea. The mountainous region, which forms much of the Jordanian-Israeli border running from the Dead Sea down towards the Gulf of Aqaba, could see Israeli attempts to cross, perhaps to illegally smuggle Gazans across that border and dump them in Jordan, or alternatively, where they would choose to engage Jordanian forces. Jordan is under no illusion they are outgunned by Israel, but equally taking Jordan presents Israel with problems of its own too. Once they've taken that fertile occupied strip along the River Jordan, for example, they are faced by a vast expanse of desert, sprawling territory they'd struggle to then hold, even if seizing and controlling the whole of Jordan is all part of the Greater Israel plan. It would also put Israel on a direct border with both Iraq, who are engaged in seeing the US leave their territory, but also the Saudis, who might see Israel as a much more significant threat to them at that point, and who refuse to have normalized relations with Israel until a Palestinian state is now established. What could Jordan do to avoid war, though, and push back on Trump's narrative, though? Well, Jordan is full of US bases. They can be closed. It's a threat Honduras have already issued to Trump if he mistreats Hondurans being deported from the US. There are 3,000 US troops stationed in Jordan that they could boot out, but ultimately war is being considered, and again it brings us back to Jordan's Foreign Minister, Ayman Safadi. Here's an excerpt from the New Arab where he makes the point of war being considered. Forceful comments from Jordan's Foreign Minister, Ayman Safadi, following Trump's announcement suggested that Amman would take a strong stance against Israel if Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu forcibly expelled Gaza's population. However, would the kingdom go so far as to engage in war with Israel in response to further ethnic cleansing of Palestinian land? Some media has claimed so, particularly after Arabic language reports quoted Safadi as saying, "If there are any attempts to forcibly displace Palestinians to Jordan, we will confront them with all our capabilities. This is a declaration of war to Jordan, and we will respond." Lamis Andoni, a leading expert on Jordanian-Palestinian affairs who launched the New Arab as its editor-in-chief, said Safadi's comments emphasized the gravity of the situation. He said these comments to stress the implications of Trump's plan. This is what Safadi meant. This is a red line for Jordan. They are also afraid it will spark a civil war as it has inflamed people's fears and concerns for the future about more refugees in the country, she told TNA. Certainly that last point carries with it the most weight, I feel, because as much as Jordan's government and King Abdullah might want to avoid war at all costs, the people are far less happy about sitting and waiting for what might seem like the inevitable. To agree to take Gazans into Jordan has been described as political suicide by Bedouin spokesperson Etaf al-Rudan. And as such, a hurriedly arranged diplomatic visit for King Abdullah to see Trump at the White House, apparently at the US's bequest, has been arranged for the 11th of February. This was announced before Trump's decision to row back on owning Gaza, incidentally, and making the displacement of Gazans temporary now. So we'll see how that goes. But if it goes badly, or Trump gobs off something completely contrary to what gets discussed later on Truth Social or somewhere, all bets are going to be off anyway. Trump is blowing in both directions right now, rowing back on his determination to relocate the Gazan people, and then reiterating it all again on social media. He has said Jordan will take them. Abdullah is going to the White House with red lines saying, "No, we damn well won't." How will it turn out? We won't wait long to see, but with Israel already making plans to enact this plan of Trump's anyway, his words emboldening them to go ahead with it, it's a massive problem Trump has created in the Middle East now, making matters 10 times worse, as he was always bound to do. How do you think this is going to pan out? Will Jordan relent again? Or will they finally be forced to do something more proactive shortly, as more and more control seems to be being taken out of their hands by events happening all around them? Not just this debacle Trump has caused now. Do let me know in the comments below. Meanwhile, Hamas have weighed in exactly what they think of Trump's idea. Can you imagine how they've reacted? Well, wonder no more. It's all here in this video recommendation as your next watch. But before you do, if you haven't yet hit like, share and subscribe to the channel, please do so before you disappear so as to not miss out on all new content dropping daily, as well as supporting the channel to keep on keeping on, which is very much appreciated too. And I will hopefully catch you on the next vid, therefore. Cheers, folks.